They said grief makes you forget, but I remember everything, the smell of baby powder, the sound of his laugh, the night my world broke. My name is Nora, and I once trusted someone so much that I let her hold my baby while I slept. When I woke up, my son was gone, and so was she. People said I was careless, that I didn't deserve to be a mother. But they didn't see the bruises on my trust, or the love that blinded me. I wasn't rich, but I had hope. I believed family meant safety. I believed help couldn't hurt. It's been 3 years since that night, and every breath still feels like punishment. I walk past children and see my son's eyes in strangers. I smile, but inside, I'm still searching. Searching for answers. For forgiveness. For myself. Maybe this story isn't about how I lost my child, but how losing him revealed the truth about people and about love. Because sometimes, the person you trust to carry your child will be the one who lets him fall. I met Natasha on a rainy Thursday, the kind of rain that makes the earth smell new. She was my cousin from my mother's side, someone I hadn't seen since we were children. When she showed up at my small apartment in Lagos, soaked and shivering, I didn't hesitate. I let her in. At that time, my life was fragile. I'd just given birth to Tonye, my little boy with eyes like dawn. His father had vanished when I got pregnant, and I was struggling to balance work, sleepless nights, and unpaid bills. Natasha came like an answered prayer. She cooked, cleaned, and helped me care for Tonye. I remember thinking, maybe God sent her to give me rest. She would hum lullabies while feeding my baby, and sometimes she'd whisper, "He looks just like you, Nora." But there were moments I ignored. The way she sometimes held Tonye too tight. The way her eyes lingered when strangers praised him. I brushed it off as jealousy, or maybe fatigue. I didn't know it was the beginning of my undoing. Sometimes, love blinds us to quiet danger. The people who offer help may not always bring healing. How do you recognize danger when it comes wearing a familiar face? That night, I was exhausted beyond words. Tonye had been crying for hours, his tiny fists clenching at the air as if he could hold back the dark. Natasha offered to watch him while I rested. I hesitated, a tiny warning stirring inside me, but the exhaustion was heavier than my fear. I handed him over, kissed his soft cheek, and collapsed onto the bed. Hours passed, and the quiet of the apartment felt too still. I woke to an empty crib. My heart stopped. I screamed his name, shaking the sheets, checking every corner. Natasha was gone too. I called her phone. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. Panic clawed at my chest. I ran into the hall, my neighbor peering at me, asking what was wrong. My voice broke. "My baby, she has him. I don't know where." The next hours blurred into chaos, police, neighbors, a search through rain-soaked streets. I had trusted her with everything, and in one night, that trust had become a cage of terror. I never realized that love could be so fragile, that the people who walk in to help could also be the ones who take your world. Trust is precious, but even the familiar can hide harm. How far would you go to protect someone you love, even from the ones you trust? I remember staring at the crib as if my eyes could will Tonye back into it. The tiny blanket he used to kick and twist lay crumpled, still smelling faintly of milk and warmth. My heart refused to understand. My baby, my son, the center of my world, was gone. The police came, asking questions I barely understood. They took my statement, scribbling furiously while I repeated the same words over and over. She took him, she promised she would watch over him. I could see the pity and suspicion in their eyes. I wasn't just a mother who had lost her child, I was a woman whose judgment was being questioned. Neighbors whispered behind curtains. Even friends avoided me, unsure whether to offer comfort or distance. Every door I knocked on led to silent stares and unspoken blame. Hours turned to days. Each tick of the clock was a knife, each shadow a reminder of my helplessness. I replayed every moment, every decision, every smile I had shared with Natasha, wondering when the betrayal began, and how I had been too blind to see it. The weight of loss settled into my chest, pressing down so heavily I could barely breathe. Every heartbeat screamed her name, every tear whispered my failure. Sometimes the people we let in the closest hold the power to destroy us. How can you protect your heart without closing it to those who truly care? Days blurred into nights, and my search for Tonye became a relentless ache in my bones. Every street in Lagos felt empty, every alley a cruel reminder that he could be anywhere, or worse, nowhere. I called hospitals, orphanages, and even roadside clinics. Each no sliced through me like glass. I remember collapsing on the sidewalk one evening, rain drenching my hair and clothes, my body shaking with exhaustion and despair. Passers-by avoided me, whispering words I could barely hear. Poor woman, lost her child. I wanted to scream that it wasn't my fault, that someone I trusted had taken him. But the world wasn't listening. I even went to the police station daily, hoping for news. Each time, I left with the same hollow answer, "We're looking, madam." Looking wasn't enough. I had to find him before he disappeared into shadows I couldn't reach. Late at night, I would replay every small moment with Natasha. Every laugh, every lullaby, every time I had let my guard down. Was I naive? Foolish? Could I have done something differently? The desperation grew heavier than the night itself. My heart ached, my spirit tittered. I realized that losing a child isn't just about absence, it's about the betrayal of your deepest trust. Desperation teaches us the depth of our love and the fragility of trust. How far would you go to reclaim what was stolen from you? It was on the 5th day, at a crowded market near Ajegunle, that I saw him. My heart froze before my eyes even processed it. A small boy, wrapped in a faded green blanket, was being held by a woman I didn't recognize. My chest tightened, my knees threatened to give way. I ran, pushing through the crowd, shouting his name, "Tonye. My baby." The woman's face twisted in panic, and she clutched him tighter. My voice cracked as tears streamed down my face. "Please. He's mine. He's my son." People gathered, some whispering, some recording with their phones. I didn't care. I didn't care about judgment, shame, or appearances. All I wanted was my child. My hands trembled as I reached for him, and when our eyes met, his tiny, terrified eyes, I felt an unimaginable wave of relief and sorrow. Relief that he was alive, sorrow for the hours and days I had lost. The woman hesitated, and then, finally, let me hold him. His body pressed against mine, fragile and warm, as if he could feel every heartbeat I had spent mourning him. In that moment, I realized something: trust, once broken, can almost cost you everything you love. Even brief lapses in trust can have lifelong consequences. How do you decide who deserves your trust when everything is at stake? After I clutched Tonye to my chest, the crowd slowly dispersed, leaving Natasha and me standing in silence. My hands still shook as I searched her face for answers. I had trusted her completely, opened my home and heart, and in return, she had stolen my son. Tears blurred my vision as I asked, "Why, Natasha? Why would you do this?" Her lips trembled, but no words came. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she confessed. She had been desperate, needing money for her sick mother and her own children. She thought she could return him later, once she had what she needed. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. Betrayal burned hotter than grief. How could someone I loved, someone I had trusted with my life, cause so much pain? I wanted to scream, to hurt her as she had hurt me, but holding Tonye, feeling his soft breath, I realized anger wouldn't fix anything. I reported her to the authorities, but I also realized that part of healing meant understanding the desperation that drove her. I had lost precious time with my son, and the wound in my heart would not heal quickly. Betrayal often comes from weakness and need, not just cruelty. Understanding doesn't erase pain, but it helps you survive it. Can compassion exist alongside grief, even when someone you love betrays you? Even after Tonye was back in my arms, life didn't return to the way it had been. Every night, I would rock him to sleep and notice the emptiness of the hours we had lost. I whispered apologies I didn't fully understand, telling him, "Mama is so sorry for not protecting you." People told me I should be grateful he was alive, but they didn't see the nights I spent shaking, haunted by the thought of never finding him. Every child I passed in the street made my stomach twist. Every mother with her baby reminded me of what I had almost lost forever. Trust, once broken, leaves a shadow. I began questioning every decision, every person in my life. Could I ever rely on anyone again? Could I ever leave him in someone else's care without panic clawing at my chest? I realized that survival wasn't just about keeping him alive. It was about healing myself, regaining the courage to trust carefully, and protecting the fragile bond we shared. Even in the midst of love, grief lingers, and fear becomes a constant companion. The shadow of loss never truly disappears, it simply becomes a quiet weight you carry alongside your heart. Surviving betrayal requires patience, resilience, and learning to protect both your heart and your loved ones. How do you rebuild trust after it has been shattered? Returning home with Tonye, I thought the worst was behind me. But the world outside my door was unkind. Neighbors whispered, eyes filled with pity or judgment. Some assumed I had been careless, others blamed Natasha, yet still questioned my decisions. Even family members offered advice wrapped in shame. "You should have been more cautious," they said. "You trusted too easily." I wanted to scream that I had done everything I could, but words felt useless against the weight of their judgment. I noticed my own mother's friends staring when I walked past. Children stared, pointing. Their innocent eyes reflected the gossip that had grown like vines in my absence. I realized the trauma didn't end with Tonye's return, it extended into the world's eyes, into assumptions that questioned my worth as a mother. Every whispered word reminded me how fragile life can be when trust is violated. Yet, holding my son close, I also understood something powerful: grief and judgment from others could not define our bond. My love for him, our survival together, mattered far more than their opinions. The world will judge, but true healing begins when you prioritize love over opinion. How do you protect your heart from the judgments of others while nurturing those you love most? Even with Tonye safe, nights became unbearable. Every creak in the apartment made me startle. Every cough or whimper sent my heart racing. I couldn't sleep, afraid that he might vanish again. My body ached from exhaustion, but worse was the anxiety that settled into my bones. I replayed the events over and over, questioning my own decisions. Why had I trusted Natasha so completely? How could I have been so blind to the warning signs? The guilt was suffocating, and each night it whispered, "If only, if only." Friends tried to comfort me, bringing food or offering to help watch Tonye, but even their presence felt like a reminder of the betrayal. I found myself withdrawing, retreating into a world where only he and I existed. The outside world felt too dangerous, too unpredictable. Yet, amidst the terror and guilt, I also discovered resilience I hadn't known I possessed. Each night I stayed awake holding him, I learned patience, vigilance, and the strength to face a world that had failed me once before. Trauma leaves scars, but surviving it teaches strength, vigilance, and love that cannot be shaken. How do you rebuild your life when fear keeps you awake, but love demands your courage? Days became a tightrope walk. Caring for Tonye while working long hours left me exhausted. The trust one once freely gave to others had vanished. I couldn't leave him alone, yet life demanded that I step away for bills, groceries, and the small responsibilities that kept us alive. Even small mistakes felt monumental. If he cried while I cooked, my heart raced. If he wandered a few steps away, a panic consumed me. Every action was measured, every second weighed. I had learned that vigilance was survival, but it came with an invisible price, anxiety that never left, a constant knot in my stomach. People suggested I hire help, but I refused. After Natasha, I could not entrust anyone. I could only trust myself. And yet, each day, I watched other mothers move freely, laughing, while I carried the burden of fear alone. The strain showed in my body and in my spirit. My hands were rough, my back sore, my heart heavy. But each night, when Tonye fell asleep in my arms, I remembered why I endured. Love, fierce and unyielding, made the weight bearable. Survival often demands extraordinary vigilance, but love is the force that sustains even the heaviest burdens. How much of yourself are you willing to sacrifice to protect the ones you love? Even years later, memories of that night haunted me. The sound of the rain, Natasha's empty eyes, the helpless cry of my baby, they returned unbidden, like ghosts that refused to leave. Every time Tonye scraped his knee or fell, my heart leapt, imagining losing him again. I realized that trauma doesn't vanish, it hides in quiet moments. The laughter of other children, the warmth of a friend's hug, even the mundane rhythm of daily life could trigger flashes of fear and guilt. I had survived, but the pain had etched itself into my body and mind. Sometimes I found myself replaying every detail of that night, searching for answers that didn't exist. Could I have noticed the signs earlier? Could I have prevented the betrayal? Every what if felt like a knife, cutting deeper with each repetition. Yet, holding Tonye in my arms, seeing his laughter, his fast steps, I understood something profound. Survival does not erase memory, but it transforms it. My grief became a guide, a silent teacher, reminding me of my strength and love. Trauma may return like a shadow, but acknowledging it allows you to grow stronger, more protective, and more compassionate. How do you face the memories that threaten to consume you, while still moving forward? Months later, I received a message that froze my blood. Natasha wanted to meet. My hands shook as I read her words, a mix of apology and explanation. Part of me wanted to run, to erase her from my life forever. But another part, the part that still wanted answers, demanded closure. We met in a quiet cafe. She looked smaller than I remembered, her eyes heavy with shame. Nora, she whispered, I never meant for it to go this far. I was desperate. I wanted to scream, to make her feel every second of the terror she caused. But instead, I listened. I let her explain, let her spill the desperation that had driven her to take my son. It hurt to hear, yet somehow, it offered a strange clarity. Holding Tonye close under the table, I realized the past could not be undone. She had betrayed me, yes, but I could control how I allowed it to shape my life. Anger would weigh me down, understanding, painful as it was, gave me freedom. Confronting those who hurt us doesn't erase the past, but it can grant insight, clarity, and the chance to reclaim our power. Can facing betrayal give you strength, even when it cannot undo the pain? After the encounter with Natasha, I realized trust had become a fragile treasure. For months, I couldn't let anyone hold Tonye, even for a minute. Friends offering help made my chest tighten. I wanted to believe them, but my heart remembered betrayal too vividly. Slowly, I began testing the waters. I allowed my sister to feed him, my neighbor to watch him while I ran to the market. Each time, my stomach churned, but I survived. Each time, the bond with my son grew stronger. I learned that love sometimes requires courage, courage to trust carefully, not recklessly, and courage to let others support you without fear. It was painful, learning to hand over my heart in pieces, fearing it might be crushed again. But Tonye's laughter, the way he reached for me with tiny arms, reminded me that life was worth the risk. Trust could grow again, if nurtured patiently. I began to teach myself boundaries, to listen to intuition, and to cherish those who proved themselves worthy. The betrayal still stung, but it no longer controlled my every choice. I had learned to survive, to protect, and, slowly, to trust again. Healing trust is gradual, requiring patience, courage, and wisdom to distinguish danger from genuine care. How do you rebuild faith in people after it has been shattered? Even as Tonye grew stronger, taller, and more curious, guilt clung to me like a shadow. I blamed myself for trusting Natasha, for not noticing the warning signs sooner, for every second my son had been in danger. Some nights, I would lie awake, imagining scenarios where I could have prevented the nightmare entirely. The guilt wasn't logical. Tonye was back, safe, and loved. Yet my heart carried the memory of every tear shed, every frantic search through rain-soaked streets, every hour of panic and helplessness. I felt like a mother who had failed in the one job that mattered most, to protect her child. Talking to other mothers helped. I realized that guilt is often a companion for those who care deeply. It's a reminder of the stakes, a proof of love. But I also learned that guilt can imprison you if you let it. I began forgiving myself, understanding that my mistakes had come from love, not negligence. Holding Tonye close each morning, watching his bright eyes, I promised myself I would channel the guilt into vigilance, into teaching him strength, and into protecting him fiercely, without letting fear consume us. Guilt proves our love, but it must be transformed into care, vigilance, and growth to heal. How do you forgive yourself for the mistakes that feel unforgivable? The first time Tonye smiled after the nightmare, it felt like sunlight breaking through a long, stormy night. I had been so consumed by fear and guilt that I forgot how small moments of joy could heal a heart. His laughter was fragile at first, like a bird testing its wings, but it grew stronger, filling the apartment with warmth. I realized that survival isn't just about enduring pain, it's about noticing life's tiny victories. Each smile, each step, each word he learned was a reminder that we had survived together. That our bond, forged in trauma, was unbreakable. Friends began visiting again, carefully, some bringing gifts, others offering help. I still hesitated, but gradually, I allowed myself to accept kindness without fear. Tonye's happiness taught me that recovery isn't linear. It's messy, full of setbacks, but also moments of pure magic. Holding him that evening, I whispered promises to always protect him, to cherish him, and to never let the shadows of betrayal overshadow our love. For the first time in years, I felt a lightness in my chest, a flicker of hope I thought I had lost forever. Even after the deepest pain, small joys can restore faith and renew the spirit. How do you recognize and embrace the small victories that bring healing after trauma? As Tonye grew, I realized survival alone wasn't enough. I needed to teach him the lessons the world had almost stolen from him. Each day became a classroom of resilience, patience, and love. I taught him to speak kindly, to respect others, and to value trust, but also to be cautious, to protect his heart without closing it. We spent hours in the park, under the sun, talking about honesty, courage, and the weight of choices. I told him, in age-appropriate ways, that some people make mistakes out of need or fear, and that forgiveness doesn't erase pain but frees the soul. Each story I shared reminded him, and reminded me, that love can heal, even after betrayal. There were moments I faltered, tears slipping as I remembered the nights I had almost lost him. But Tonye, in his small, growing way, taught me too. His laughter, his trust, his boundless curiosity reminded me why I survived, why I fought to reclaim him and rebuild our lives. Together, we turned pain into purpose. Each hug, each bedtime story, became an act of reclamation, proof that love can triumph over fear and trauma. True strength is nurtured through love, patience, and teaching the next generation how to heal and protect themselves. How can we turn our darkest experiences into lessons of strength for those we love most? Part 17, A Life Reclaimed. Years passed, and Tonye grew into a lively, kind-hearted boy, unaware of the full weight of the nightmare we had survived. Watching him run freely through the garden, laughing with pure joy, I felt a warmth I had thought was gone forever. Every sleepless night, every tear, every moment of fear had led to this, a life reclaimed. I had learned to live with the memory of betrayal, to carry it lightly instead of letting it crush me. I forgave Natasha in my heart, not for her sake, but for mine, so that anger would not steal another day of happiness. My love for Tonye became a shield, protecting him from the shadows that once haunted us. Life wasn't perfect. The scars remained, but they reminded me of my resilience. I found joy in simple things, our morning routines, his first words of the day, the way he reached for my hand without hesitation. Every day was a victory over the past, a testament to endurance, courage, and love. I realized that survival is not just enduring, it's reclaiming life, teaching love, and living fully despite the pain. Tonye's laughter proved that even in the deepest sorrow, hope could rise again. Life can be rebuilt after betrayal and loss, and love, patience, and resilience are the foundations of true recovery. How would you reclaim your life if everything you held dear was almost stolen? Life can be stolen, hearts can be broken, and trust can be betrayed, but love and resilience have the power to rebuild what was lost. Every hardship teaches strength, every tear fosters courage, then every act of care restores hope. Forgiveness may not undo the past, but it frees the soul to embrace the present. Protect those you love fiercely, and never underestimate the power of vigilance, patience, and inner strength. If everything you held dear was almost taken from you, how would you reclaim your life and rebuild your heart? The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. Hit the notification bell to stay updated. Your support means everything to us.